An announcement that we've been very, very, very excited, and we've been just waiting to let you guys know. We actually have a go live date, so we're going to talk about that. The BidBuy monthly training that we have this Thursday, we actually do have some spots still available. And then for our activity section, we're going to talk about adding more than 25 vendors at a requisition. There's a little quirk in the system that we have gone over in the past, but it has popped up a few more times at the agency. So we just want to be able to make sure that we're letting everybody know how to do that. So this would only be for small purchases less than $10,000. And then we're going to have a new segment that will potentially be every week, potentially not, depending on what we're seeing from the agencies. An FAQ segment. So when I do trainings for agencies, if there's something that just keeps kind of popping up as a frequently asked question, might as well just talk about it on these Tuesdays. So that's something that we'll run through. And then we have our fun fact of the day. So most importantly, we have very exciting news. We have a date for you. So Clark Griswold, drum roll, please. BidBuy version 15 is here. So go live is going to be a week from today. So Tuesday, February 18th, when you guys log into BidBuy, it will be the new version 15. So just as a reminder to anybody who may be new on the call or new up for these training Tuesdays and hasn't been aware of the version 15, we're currently in version 13. We'll be moving to version 15. All the general workflow will be the same. You'll still be creating a requisition, potentially moving to bid, awarding at the bid tab, converting to purchase order. All of that's going to be the same. It's just going to look a lot different. We are going to be posting more videos. You can go back and take a look at some of the training Tuesdays where I did some general navigation videos and some general overview of the system. So a couple notes. It's going to be loaded over the weekend. So, and note that on Sunday, February 16th, the production environment in BidBuy will be down because they are going to be loading the new version. So if there's any activity that needs to happen, just please be aware that you will not be able to do that on Sunday. And just need to mute. So it'll be loaded over the weekend. So anybody's trying to do any work over the weekend, you potentially might not be able to. But specifically Sunday, February 16th, the production environment will be down. So when you get in on Tuesday morning after our Monday holiday, it will look different, and it's going to be version 15. We will be having potentially more trainings available. Like I said, we have videos that are out there. We'll be posting more videos on specific procurement types, as well as we'll be doing our monthly BidBuy training at the Stratton building. So speaking of that, we do have 6 spots available for this Thursday, February 13th. Those trainings are at the CDB Computer Lab at the Stratton building, room 320 in Springfield. We start at 10 a.m. and we normally finish up by 3:30. We'll be covering all the general navigation as well as releases off masters and small purchases and that general workflow in BidBuy. So if you're interested in registering, just email the email address below, cpogs.training@illinois.gov. I will hopefully have a March date available for you on this call next week, as well as I will send those around to APOs and SPOs. Okay, so let's talk about adding vendors at the requisition. So this is only going to be for small purchases less than $10,000. Okay, if it's any other procurement that is a small purchase greater than $10,000 or any other procurement type, you're going to be adding the vendors at the bid stage, and this is not going to apply. But for some reason, when you're adding vendors at the requisition stage, and if there are more than 25 vendors listed, so this isn't going to happen all the time, but it certainly does for certain procurement or for certain NIGP codes. For some reason, if you add more than 25 vendors and then you go in and select save and exit, so you go in and you select all the vendors, you check that checkbox, and you go in and select save and exit, it only picks the first 25. So I'm going to go out and into the train and show you guys the difference in what that looks like. But what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go in and click save and next page, then go in and select all the vendors in that checkbox and repeat the steps for each page of vendors. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go out to our training environment. All right, so we have a requisition here. If I'm gonna add vendors, so we're going to our vendors. Scroll down and look up and add vendors. And this note is on the job aid. So, once again, if you just literally walk right through the job aid, you'll see that there's a note there that talks about this, but I feel like it's appropriate to discuss with everybody. So let's say I'm gonna go in, let's see, one, I know that the consulting services has a lot. So even if I'm doing small business set aside for the first time, right? 'Cause if I'm going out to the small businesses first, click find it. I see that I have 94 vendors here. So what we would always do, right? We select that top box. So it looks like it selected all of them, right? But if I click save and exit, it's going to go back to my vendors tab. And now when I scroll all the way down to see all my vendors, there should be 94 vendors here, right? That's what you would suspect, but it just took the first 25. Okay, so what you have to do is, we're looking up and adding our vendors. 918, small business set aside, yes. Click find it. What we need to do is we'll select that top checkbox every time, but instead of saving and exiting, we're going to select save and next page. So what that does, it just brings you to the next 25 vendors. You'll do the same thing, select that checkbox, save and next page again, right? So that's just the second page. You can see all these different pages here. Save and next page. And so you'll repeat those steps all the way through until you've reached your final page. It is just a weird quirk in just for those small purchases less than $10,000 when you're adding vendors on the requisition. So now once I save and exit, now I will have all 94 vendors there. And then from that point, from that point forward, you would do everything exactly you normally would. You do the informal bid on web. So now as I scroll down, you see I have all the vendors that I need to. From that point forward, everything's the same. You do publish informal bid. It's going to be restricted. You select your bid ending date, and you move forward. Okay. Okay, so for our this week's FAQ section, like I said, this will be a new segment that we'll add most weeks. There's potential that we wouldn't each week, but if there's something that's popping up on some of our trainings that we can provide additional information or clarification, we'll talk about it here. So what's the difference between an actual begin and end date and the release begin and end date? So this is our fields that are on our general tab. And the difference is, for a actual begin and end date versus the release begin and end date, a release begin and end date is only going to be used for a release off master. However, POs cannot print differently based on what type of PO it is. So on a release off master, the comptroller needs to see that release begin and end date to verify that it's not an expired contract, right? So for release off master, the actual begin end date, which is a required field, can match the release begin end date, which isn't technically a required field. And so it's a comptroller requirement, but since we can't change the general tab depending on if it's a release off master or if it's just any other type of procurement, we didn't want to make the release begin and end date a required field because it just would be not applicable for anything other than a release off master. So for any other procurement type, you would potentially actually have a contract begin and end date. For any other procurement type other than a release off master, we wouldn't want to have that to be the release begin and end date to be a required field. So hopefully we can clear that up. So, BidBuy is still going to say, once you get to the, you will have a release begin and end date match the actual begin and end date on that general tab. And that's just to be able to move it through the system. Okay. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me, as well as, to your agency if that isn't clear. Okay. Okay. So our fun fact, always read your contract documents. I love this story. I got to give a shout out to our SPO, David Papp. He thought this would be a great one. So David, I love it. This is right up my alley. So Van Halen in the 80s, they would have, writers for their backstage, right? Hey, we need to have this. We need to have so many, drinks and food and water and all this sort of stuff. So their standard performance contract contained a provision calling them to be provided backstage. They had to have a bowl of M&Ms from which all the brown candies had been removed. So, when you first hear this story, it's like, oh my gosh, who are these guys? They think it's like these multimillionaires. They're kind of snobs. What's wrong with the brown M&M? I like all M&Ms, so what's the difference? So the why is more important than the what. So they described as an example of rock excess, the outlandish demand of multimillionaires. The group actually said that M&M provision was included to make sure that promoters had actually read its lengthy rider. And so if they walk in the backstage and there are brown M&Ms, Van Halen figured out that possibly the more important aspects of their performance, so their staging, security, ticketing, lighting, the stuff that actually really matters to put on a good show, might have been botched by an inattentive promoter. So kind of a fun reminder, always read all those contract documents to make sure that there's nothing in the fine print that could mess up your procurement. Okay, do we have any questions? Okay, so just as a reminder, Sunday production in BidBuy will be down as they will be loading, as well as when you come in on Tuesday, the version 15 will be uploaded. You guys do have access. If you have access to BidBuy, you also have access to the training environment. We highly suggest you go out there and start playing around, spend a little time getting comfortable with how things are going to be moving, as well as on Tuesday, we will be uploading new job aids for every procurement type. And then on that Tuesday, I might run through a few of them just to kind of show you what is changing. Really, other than, potentially finding little things here or there, the biggest difference is just going to be how you specifically find a document, or how you create a requisition is a little bit different in version 15 versus 13, as well as if I'm going to go back and find a document, we have now have the option of that recent documents list. So there's just very small little things that'll be changing on the job aids, but since we're relying on the job aids so much, we want to make sure that those are very clear. Okay, I do have a question here. Will version 15 fix the requirement to add the contract start and end dates that were already there? We're required to add it when it is actually already in there. I guess I don't know what you mean if you say if it's actually already in there, because if it's that actual begin and end date is a required field, once it's on the summary page. I'm getting an answer from our systems team here that no. The answer is no. Doesn't fix the requirement to add the contract start and end dates. Is that the SAP error message? So is that we're required to add it in when it's actually already there? So are you getting a SAP error message there? No. Okay. It's a BidBuy error message. Well, a lot of times it's technically coming from SAP if you get one of those errors because of the interface between BidBuy and SAP. So I guess when we say is an SAP error message, sometimes we need to get a little bit more clarification there. You know what? I might have to circle back with our team here just to double check what exact error that is. If you wouldn't mind, would you email us a screenshot of that? And if you can email it to david.luttrell@illinois.gov or to the state user help desk, that would be fine. Oh yeah, they're telling me to have him email a screenshot. Hey, I had the right answer. So yeah, screenshot that and send it to us, and we'll double check what the issue is. That would be great. I'm also getting another message. Audio was almost non-existent this morning. Shoot, I hope that wasn't an issue with everybody. A lot of times we have I'm getting some messages that it wasn't for everybody. That it was clear, audio was fine. Perhaps sometimes through these WebExes there's some issues that could potentially be on your end. So I'm sorry if you had any problems, but this was recorded, so you can always go, and I'm gonna, as soon as I get off here, I'll get the recording. And just as a reminder for everybody, we post these videos on the CPOGS site in the training center. So if you go to the CPOGS site, go to the training center, they're right here in the Training Tuesdays. So if you missed a few of the Training Tuesdays, and these are all real short, I mean, these are all 15 minutes or so, you can always go back, take a look at the slides. They're titled by what we talked about that day. You can go in and take a look at that. So I'm sorry if you had any audio issues this morning, but I'll be posting that video here very shortly, and you'll be able to see it out there. Okay, any other questions? All right, thanks everybody.